and foremost, I want to say thank you for viewing my presentation today. My name is Jemal Clarke, graphic designer, and the title of my project is called Step Zero, and it falls under the grounds of self-reflection and accountability, with the objective being self-awareness. So the problem statement here is that people lack self-awareness, which often leads to depression and suppression of personal growth. And that's a huge issue in today's society, in my opinion. So what is Step Zero? It's a multiplayer card game focused on furthering individual development through group accountability and self-reflection. It's called Step Zero because the first step in solving any problem is acknowledgement. So that's where the accountability part comes in. So right into the thick of things, I'm gonna get into the guidelines for playing. The first rule or guideline is that all players pinky promise for honesty. The second being, if a scenario applies, players raise their hands to take an accountability point, and answers are required to receive accountability points. The third being that the first player to draw a card is usually the tallest player. If two players are equal in height, we recommend one round of rock, paper, scissors. And the fourth being that gameplay follows a clockwise direction. And the fifth is, at the end of each 5 scenario round, the players with the least accountability points takes a shot of hot sauce. We'll get into that later. So, just wanted to show you guys some process work. So, just to give some context as to how I came to the current design. So here we have some cards. Is it okay if I do mine? So you'll see some cards coming around, and those were the initial design that came from these rough drafts that you see on the screen. I was just concerned with do I go in a literal sense and do a 0? Do I just use the type? How do I lay out the card? What's the formatting? Am I asking questions or am I doing scenarios? So then I went into assemblage and pattern. So if I am gonna use pattern, why? If I am gonna use assemblage, what do they mean? And then I actually went out and rendered some, and I also conducted an early short survey just to get a gauge on what people do in their leisure time, and as well as how much time they have for themselves. So these are the fonts that I currently am using. It's on that card that you guys are seeing there. So the main headline font is Zing Base, and it's combined with Zing Shadow. It's also, the body copy is also Montserrat Black and Montserrat semi-bold and extra bold. And yeah, these are the logos that I have currently. You'll see it all over the branding or the project. So I kind of just play with the circle and mind, get your mind going. And these are the current colors in use, along with their hex codes at the bottom. So I use 2, I'm not sure how it looks here, but the top color is a bit lighter than the bottom, just for your reference. And these are how the current cards look. So just wanted to touch on the philosophy behind my current design. These colors come in levels. So this yellow one right here, yellow stands for lightheartedness, and it tends to be kind of humorous, Red is kind of deep, it's passion filled. Blue, it kind of symbolizes the waterworks, kind of gets your emotions riled up, And this purple right here, in nature, purple is a rare color, so it kind of intrigues people, when they see it. So if you saw me in this purple coat that I wear, it usually stands out because it's oh, you don't usually see things that are purple, or at least this deep purple. And also to touch on the pattern. So the pattern in the background, I decided to go with an abstract kind of motion pattern. because I realized things with like flat colors are kind of boring to look at, you know? So I decided to go with something like more emotion filled. And yeah, so here's a clearer layout of like what the card will look like on the face side. And basically, as you know, it's never have I ever scenarios. So the idea behind that is just that I feel like with these other games out there, for example, We're Not Really Strangers and Big Talk, they're usually phrased in questions, and that kind of gets them going and it gets them communicating. But in this case, since I'm going with like a more heavier topic, I decided to go with a game that is traditionally more fun, you know? So Never Have I Ever is usually like a drinking game. So that's where that comes from. And the hot sauce is kind of like a double incentive. So the first rule, as you know, is we thank you for honesty. And the last rule is that the players with the least accountability points takes a 2-ounce shot of hot sauce. So it just kind of keeps you on your toes and it spices up the game, quite literally. So, yeah. And right here, I just want to show you guys like what the back of the card deck looks like, since I didn't really mock that up. So the back of the card has this quote here by Maxwell Maltz, which says, "We make mistakes, mistakes don't make us." And I really wanted to point out that we want people to know that they're not alone on this journey. And self-awareness is indeed a personal trip. However, we can all travel this road together. And this is how my guidelines would look. So the guidelines would be folded into like a little square, and I insert them into the front part of each card deck. And it's going to be on an 8.5 by 11 standard like glossy paper. And just to reassure everyone, this isn't pink. This is just the light from the mock-up that I used. So, and this is a 3D individual deck design that I did on where I'm buying like the decks and the mailer boxes. So the colors are kind of muted for this application, but it's just to show you guys like the dimensions, as well as like how it looks like fully laid out. And I've tried to keep everything like consistent and on brand. This is the mailer box design that I did. It also has the dimensions. I tried to keep the space as compact as possible because for financial purposes, when you like continue to like add extra space, it just costs more money to produce. So one of my key considerations was accessibility. And in order to have something that's truly accessible, why not make it, you know, universal in a sense? So I decided to come up with like social media content, which would come in the form of like quotes, affirmations, short videos on various mental health topics, random never have I ever polls, accountability sessions that we call Live and Learn Lives, which means that we hear from real people and they talk about the lessons that they've learned in life. And promotion of other accredited emotional and mental health advocacy pages, and also like TikTok challenges. So I came up with something called a Something Different Challenge, which challenges people to do something that they wouldn't normally do, like an act of service or kindness. And this is just an example of a social media post that I had. It says openness means having the ability to see things for what they are, not what we think they should be. And in addition to go along with the whole accessibility thing, I thought that a YouTube channel would be a great idea because people are often like binge watching on YouTube. So my idea was that we'd have a short little montage, you know, that just kind of introduces people to the game and what it's about. It wouldn't be as lengthy as a normal episode, you know, but it would probably be like 2 minutes or less, and it would just show like players playing the game that shows you that real raw emotion, you know, kind of gets you going. So the content here would be, you know, gameplay from various groups of people with extremely diverse backgrounds. I want to gather people who really don't relate to one another and have them play this game, ideally. And short videos on various mental health topics, just like the previous one, via social media. And and also Live and Learn Lives, because YouTube has a live feature as well. So I figured we could integrate that as well. Here's a basic financial statement. Is another key consideration of mine is that I wanted this to be a profitable business. So this projects a business with a positive cash flow and minimal cost of goods sold. You guys can't really see it, but basically it just breaks down that my total cost to produce these games is $535 if I was going to produce 25 of them. The full game set with the hot sauce, all of those extra stuff, costs $21.40. The regular individual card set costs $11 to produce. It's profitable because at the end of everything, accounting for cost of goods sold and my total operating expenses, be it travel, warehouse supplies, or advertising dollars, I have a net income of $80,000. Okay, and yes, this is the part I was anxious to tell you that. Okay, so this is the exhibition experience that I was kind of envisioning in my head. So I want you guys to imagine that open space between B207 and B201. That's where I'll be presenting. And my idea was that I wanted to line the walls with yards of micro suede fabric or velvet fabric, not the floor. And I also wanted to use like this reflective sheet I have to line the windows. So that way when you go to look out the window, you start to see your self-reflection, pun intended. So this is how the reflective sheets look. Just to give you guys like a visual reference. And it kind of just reflects you back, and you can't really see yourself clearly. So that's the idea behind that. And I also thought that I'd have like the YouTube video playing via a projector or a laptop, monitor, whatever. And I'd also have music playing in the background, maybe some, you know, just decent instrumentals, not too distracting. And another part of the whole experience for the exhibition was the t-shirt giveaway. So I wanted to reward winners of the game because I'd also have like, obviously allow people to play the game during the exhibit. So I wanted to award winners of the games with like little take-home t-shirts, you know, just to remember this experience by, because this is very difficult to even get into if you've never been into like self-growth and, you know, development before. So I just wanted to reward those people during that day. And yeah, I just wanted to also mention that the reason why I was thinking, so I don't know if this is outlandish or anything, but the reason why I was thinking of something like this is because I wanted to make people as comfortable as possible with being uncomfortable. Right. So thank you. Any questions, comments, or suggestions? Shortest person goes first.
This is a minor point. Can you tell me who the demographic is?
Demographic? I'm shooting for anyone ages 16 and up, because I feel like at age 16, that's when I personally started to like explore the world as a young man and try to come into my own and find myself. So I'm really looking for people who are trying to figure themselves out but really don't know where to start.
So a younger demographic. I always ask that before I have a legibility issue because I can't read this card.
Oh.
But if it's not geared towards somebody my age, then I think that's probably a different story. I mean, it's probably not that big of a deal because old eyes see things differently.
Yeah, that's exactly why I changed the formatting on the face side, because
so that it would be white?
Yeah, so
yeah,
it
would
be
make
white.
it easier.
Because I realized that even though, yes, I'm targeting like a younger demographic, I'm not excluding anyone.
Okay.
Just accessibility reasons.
Okay.
You know, so yeah.
I think since you have all of these ideas about using social media and trying to promote it as events as well as just a board game, I think it would be good, because to come up with all these questions, there's a lot of content to come up with. So So I think it could be a good idea to try and crowdsource content as well. So if you have people participating, then they could also send in suggestions. They could vote on new sets of cards and crowdsource sort of it that way. Have you seen anything about the School of Life, Alain de Botton?
No.
Alain de Botton is a contemporary pop philosopher, I guess some people call him. But he's created this thing called the School of Life, which is essentially trying to take all of these ideas of philosophers, centuries past, and make them more accessible for a contemporary audience. So if you look at all of the content they put out, it is presented in a much more contemporary and accessible way. It could be worth looking at.
Did you account for shipping in your budget plan?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so definitely accounted for shipping as well. I kind of actually lowballed it, like I tacked on extra dollars.
Okay. So have you done a test run with this and had people play the game, see how it flows and?
No, so that's the idea for the YouTube montage. So that and the t-shirts as well as the exhibition part are still in production. So I'm just gathering that right now.
I think it would be helpful to see some more of the design content, because I see the design of the cards and the box, and besides that, there's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of the business plan. It would be good to see some more designs. So, apparel or what else you could create for it. Yeah, any other opportunities to create some more design based on it.
Why did you choose this game? Does it not matter?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Why did you choose to use Never Have I Ever? Or does it not matter?
Oh, so, well, it does matter. So, originally, I wanted to go with, Question, because I was inspired by games like We're Not Really Strangers, The And, Big Talk. Those are games that focused on furthering human connection. So, I was like, oh, why reinvent the wheel? Let me just follow this format. But then, when it got to, producing content for the game, I realized, most of my content started to become repetitive, So it was like, what's the difference between buying my game and this other game? So for me, I was thinking, how can I make something different, but just as impactful, So that's really the philosophy behind it. And I also wanted to make people have fun with it as well. And I realized that Never Have I Ever is usually a drinking game. So I wanted people to really get excited almost, or as excited as possible, Yeah.
So Professor Longson mentioned just having a little bit more design content, and you do have advertising costs listed. So maybe if you could do a mock-up of one ad as well, that would give you the opportunity to show how your design sensibilities would be used there, at the same time how they would link into the game, right?
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
You spelled different in your TikTok video, so.
He just spoke different.
So there's just enough hot sauce for everyone to go around to do one shot, right?
Well, not right now, but ideally, being that I'm doing 5 rounds and it's 16 houses, I think it was about enough for 2 5-scenario rounds. Yeah, and then after that, you have to get your own.
That could be another area where you branch out or crowdsource other ideas with different consequences, because not everyone's going to want to do the hot sauce. Not everyone might want to drink with it.
Yeah.
Maybe you provide the container and they provide the beverage or whatever that goes inside it.
That's cheaper.
I'll call you guys out of the budget.
There also might be, a label might be another design element that you could explore.
Yeah,
Label
that would be
properly.
great.
right? You good?
No, I just want to mic first.
I'm sorry, put your card for you. So we're going right to the gallery.
Are we talking before the gallery?
No, we,
I didn't really have a schedule for it. Okay, is the gallery
Thank you.